downloading and installing Openfoam on your Mac. So first things first, you want to go to openfoam.org, and it gives all the instructions on how to download it. It can be a little tricky at first because you want to make sure that you download all the correct applications for running it. There's a couple other ways to do it on a Mac, but this is the way that I found works the best. On this page, it provides a bunch of links to go install Paraview. You have a terminal on your Mac, but you don't really want to use that one. I found it didn't work great with Paraview, so instead you can run a terminal through the application called XQuartz, and then essentially all this is running through an application called Docker. So if you go here, it's talking about downloading Docker. Go here, it'll bring you to this link. All these links for this page, this page, this page, and this page, which are all the links for where I downloaded all this stuff, are in the description below. So for Docker, right here, click on download Docker, bring you up to this page, and click here, it will download. Just to save time, we'll go right over to here. The instructions are right here. It's pretty, window pops up as with most applications you download, and the instructions are pretty straightforward with setting it up. It talks a little bit about going into preferences on Docker, so I'll open up mine just to show you what mine are. So if you're having any issues, you can check to make sure your preferences are the same. With Docker installed, you'll also want to download XQuartz. This is, like I said, the terminal for running Openfoam, because the terminal application that comes standard on Macs doesn't work great with Paraview. So again, it's the same process. You download it, and then essentially when you open it up, you'll get a terminal. This is the application, and then you want to open up a new terminal, and it will show up to a screen like this. We'll get back to that after we download Paraview. Paraview is the next one that you want. This application isn't necessarily for running Openfoam, but it allows you to view Openfoam and your simulations that you run. So I downloaded this file right here, the second one from January 15th. And then again, it was like all the others, downloading the application, putting it with your applications folder. On this page, you can see all these files or these codes that you can run. So each line is its own code. Follow each space, follow each. If you type it out exactly correctly, it should work. These ones are this is kind of the most important stuff to do. Setting up the case-sensitive filing system is not very critical to setting up Openfoam. It's more just setting it up in specific ways just to change how all your files are stored and saved and run. So if you have all three those softwares downloaded, installed, and all set up, go into the Finder just to show how you need to start setting up Openfoam, or set up your filing system for running Openfoam. So how you want to do it is, it's all done under users. I put XQuartz under here. I don't think it's really that necessary, but just because I was putting Openfoam under here, it's where I put it. So you want to create a folder called Openfoam under, again, your user, and then in that Openfoam folder, you want to create a folder called Run. And you'll see why in just a second when we start typing in code. So now we're in XQuartz, and now this is what it looks like. This is the terminal, and essentially you can just start typing in this code. So let's say if you're going to type in this for installing it, make this. So essentially what I did was I typed in this first line, make sure again that you type it all correctly, and you make sure that you put the spaces where you need to, like over here this is a 0, or this is a lowercase o, not a 0. And then when ask for the password, that's typing in the password to, like if you were to shut down your computer and open it back up, that's your login password. That's the password I just typed in. And then run the next set of code, or next line of code I should say. The one other thing that XQuartz has that is better than the terminal application on the MacBook is that you can use backspace and correct your lines, and you can move the cursor through and fix any typing errors, where in that one you can't really do that well. It's usually just starting a new line over again. So after that's run, next thing is actually opening and running Openfoam. So if you see here, the CD, that's standing for current directory, and that's choosing those folders that I showed you that we made right here. So every time from now on, when you want to start using Openfoam, from this point forward, you'll just type in these lines of code. It's only 2 lines, so you want to do this first one, and then instead of this one, it notes right here, if you want to use Paraview, make sure to add this little -p, just so then you can run the container with Paraview. So Now the next part is it shows one, I showed you to already make that folder called run, but let's say you didn't have that. Now that you're in the Openfoam folder, you would just type in this code right here, this line right here, make directory, foam run, and then you have two ways of getting into this folder. So the way I always do it is you can just type in run, or you also have this option of current directory, foam run. That would also put you into this folder. Current directory is used, as you can see down here. So what we're next going to do is download this file from the internet on this website. We can go, and Openfoam has a bunch of tutorials for learning Openfoam, which are extremely helpful, and they will get you up to speed very quickly on using it. So this is the one I always use, but the other website is also essentially the exact same. And this has tons of different folders, and they all have, that's what this website is using, and this Pits Daily folder that we'll now download. This website has a bunch of lines of code that if you type in will also download those folders into your folder, so then you can practice running these simulations. So essentially now what we'll do is download this, and then we'll another thing to note is just make sure that you have space right there before the period. Now for running your simulations, you want to get into that folder. So we'll go right here. Now if we go into the folders, you can see it copied all this information right into our run folder, which we were in when we ran the copy. The one thing you want to always do before you run a simulation is make a copy of it, so you can use whatever filing system you want. So you could say either make a separate folder that's called unrun, or in your run folder you have this file of on this file you could say you could put the date of when you ran this simulation. And now one thing to note, that if you are changing these file names, you want to make sure that you then change the current directory that you're in on this terminal, because if we were to change both these files, then we want to be able to run it on here. So we'll leave this one as this, so we're in the right file. The final thing we'll show before we run those two commands is in the 0 folder you have a bunch of initial conditions, constants, you have transport properties, so all these will open up. You'll eventually have, like here you have your turbulence models, so your K epsilon turbulence models, and then system, right here you have your block mesh. So the next code that we're going to run is block mesh, and so essentially that is making the whole block of which you're running the flow through. And then you have control direct. That's setting like the time frame, how often are the time steps, how many time steps are writing. Then solutions. You'll notice right here in solutions you have simple. That's essentially the type of solver that you're using. There's various solvers like piso foam, simple foam, and so forth. And if you want to use other types of solvers, you're going to start editing these files. And that's pretty much what Openfoam is you have a set number of files that you need, like block mesh, but you're going to edit them in some way, so maybe this would be 10 instead of 20.6. So now what we'll do is we'll run this, and then that'll be the end of this video. So now the mesh, kind of like if you were to run simulation in SolidWorks, you mesh the simulation before you run it. We've now meshed it, and now we're about to run the simulation. Now that is solved, you can go into Paraview by typing Parafoam. On the website, it actually gives a little warning that it's slow running Paraview, but it allows you to visualize all this. So one thing, click the eyeball right there, come down here, and you can adjust so you can, if you wanted to see velocity, you can click U, hit play. Now, what you're doing when you click play, so you have all these iterations. So in your files, when I was talking about each time step that it writes down the data, each time step that you're solving at, it wrote for every 100th time step. So what it did was it wrote down 4 times, I should say. The initial, then once it reached the 100th iteration, the 200th iteration, and then the final. And then essentially, yeah, to view those, you can either choose them individually, or you can just set it, click play, and it will go to the final one. Other little things, so you can't really view the velocity. But now you can read that that's adjusting the scale. If you want to set to custom range, then you can do that here. Remove the little key, and now you're all set. In future, if you want to, you could even have this open and say, if you had an STL file from SolidWorks, you can even open it directly from here. The last final extra bit of information on this video, why we made a separate folder. If you look here, this is the one we didn't run, so we have 0, constant, system. Everything looks exactly how it was, but by running Openfoam, it's changing all the files. So you can see here, now you have all these files. This just pops up when you open a Paraview, but to consistently run these simulations for the same data, you'd want to make sure that you have an unrun folder containing all the information and then a separate folder which you're running it in. Thank you and good luck.